Welcome back. With barely 2 months or 3 months to the 2023 general elections, how are the parties preparing for the elections? What are their manifestos? What are their philosophies? How prepared have they shown themselves to be since the campaign has begun? We'll be having this conversation with several people on the show, but I will be starting with Honorable Uloka Chukwubuikem, the Deputy Director of Media and Publicity and State Liaison Officer, PDP Presidential Campaign Committee, Anambra State. Honorable Eloka, good morning and welcome to the weekend show.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to have you on with us today. Now, I'll start with your party, and especially in the eastern part of Nigeria. You have a presidential candidate from the region who is running, and for your party, you have a candidate from another region of the country. What are the chances of the People's Democratic Party in the southeastern part of Nigeria in the 2023 elections?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to correct you on that notion that I have someone who's from Anambra State, from my region. And when you talk about region, you mean the southeast.
Yes.
I just want to correct you a little bit that we're talking about the president of Nigeria and not regional president. It's about the president of Nigeria. Anyone can come from anywhere and contest the presidency. With the campaign rally flag off that happened in Anambra State on the 15th, and it's obvious to the world that the PDP has a strong grip of the states. The crowd that came out to cheer the presidential candidate of the PDP, talking about Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, is a testament to what we in Anambra have been doing all along since the INEC lifted their ban on campaigning. Anambra has been voting PDP since 1999, and I don't think that in 2023 there will be anything different. We'll keep voting PDP. PDP is a party for Anambra. Now, talking about someone coming from my region, I would definitely want to bring your mind back that even Atiku Abubakar, by association of marriage, is also from my region because he's married to someone from Onitsha. He's an in-law. So if you talk about region, by association, Atiku is from Southeast. And our people will definitely recognize that fact and honor him with our votes. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Oka. So I'm going to ask you, it's good that you answered saying it's a national president and not a regional president. However, we do know that in the southeastern part of Nigeria, especially on Mondays, we have sit-in orders, stay-home orders by people who are not representatives of the government. This may play a role in the 2023 elections. What is your party and your national presidential candidate doing to make sure that these stay-at-home orders do not affect the elections in the southeastern part of Nigeria? Or what will he do?
Okay, first of all, I would definitely wish to decry what has become the reality of the Southeast today in Nigeria. While other nationals are going out in their business and every other thing, we in the Southeast are forced, in our home. We are forced to stay back at home. It is not our wish. And this is also to highlight, the inefficiency of the APC, to bring the country together. The inefficiency of the APC party, to address the issues in the country. Now, we have to do with the reality. We can't do anything about it. But our presidential candidate, talking about Atiku Abubakar, has promised that in his first 100 days in office, he will address the issue of the Southeast. What are those people who are doing all those things clamoring for in the Southeast today? Because they believe that the present administration in power has, the listed Southeast. The Southeast is not participating in anywhere in governance. They are crying about the nepotism of the APC-led administration. So these are the issues that Atiku has promised that he will address in his first 100 days in office. He will try to at least see how he can at least, come in with a political solution, because they have said that the problem in the Southeast will be sorted through political solution. And this is what Atiku has promised that he will do in his first 100 days in office. We are pleading our people to please come out en masse and vote for a man who has told us what he will do for us. Someone who believes in that will definitely do those things he has promised. In the last year, there was sit at home, but then Anambra took that en masse to vote for Governor Soludo to become the governor. And I'm very certain that in 2023 February, that the same Anambra will still come out en masse to vote for Atiku Abubakar to be the president of Nigeria.
Honorable Uloka, before we let you go, the G5 governors, the integrity group of the PDP, we've seen that there are internal wranglings within the party, and so far there has been no solution so far. If this hasn't been fixed internally within the PDP, how are we certain that your candidate will be able to unify the country?
Okay, thank you. I wouldn't want you to use an issue of an internal party affair, to describe a national. We're talking about politics, and I'm very sure that when Atiku Abubakar becomes the president of Nigeria, he moves from being a party candidate to being the president of the country, and he moves from playing politics to rather governing the nation. Politics and governance are two different things. In politics, it's about personal interests. In politics, it's about personal interest. But in the other side of it, it's about governance. It's about ensuring that policies affect positively, impact positively to the citizens. Talking about the G5, I think you were wrong when you said that there hasn't been any headway. There has been a lot of headway. And this, like I said, is an internal party affair, which we are trying to manage within our strength. We're trying to manage within our power. Atiku has been doing very well. If you watch the last town hall outing he did in Channels TV, when the question about Wike was thrown at him, he made it very clear that he has met Wike twice in Port Harcourt. He has met Wike twice in Lagos. Abuja, sorry. He has met Wike one overseas. Now, the ball is in Wike's court. It is not in Atiku Abubakar. He has played all the role that is expected of him as a father. He has played all the role that is expected of me as a presidential candidate. He has played all the role that is expected of me as a Democrat. And the ball is in the court of our leader and brother, Wike, which we are hopeful that very soon he will fall in line.
Honorable
be rest assured that PDP will win River State. Wike has not been campaigning for any other political party except PDP. So whatever that is personal is a party affair. So you should not use it to equate what the president is going to do on a larger scale, which is about governance. Thank you so much.
Honorable Uloka Chukwubuikem, the Deputy Director of Media and Publicity, State Liaison Office and Presidential Campaign Management Committee, Anambra State. Thank you so much for joining us on the weekend show. Wish you all the best in the 2023 elections. Moving on immediately, we have the presidential candidate.
Thank you so much, Andy.
You're welcome. We have the presidential candidate of the Accord Party, Professor Chris Imumolen. He is also one of the youngest candidates running. He is 39 years old and he will be running on the platform of Accord Party. We do have him joining us virtually to tell us about his race, why, and what he intends to do. Professor Chris, good morning and welcome to the weekend show. Okay, we seem to be having okay.
For having me on your program today.
Good morning, Professor Chris.
Yeah, good morning. Hope you can hear me.
Yes,
Thank
we can.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for your patience and thanks for joining us on the weekend show. Kudos to you running in the presidential election. You're one of the youngest candidates, and for some of us who were advocates of the not too young to run bill, we see it's a great step in the right direction. Why politics and why Accord Party? Let's start with that.
Okay, first, again, like I said, Nigeria has gotten to a stage where I think we should be having youths actively engage in politics. Actively engage in politics in the sense of taking leadership, sitting on the table to decide the future of Nigeria. I think Nigerian youth should be tired only to speak as a mouthpiece to the older generation. You know, many of these ones that we speak of today, you know, even when I look through the spokespersons of most of the presidential candidates, they are youth like us, and they even speak better. They have more ideas. Yes, they are more tenacious even than the presidential candidate themselves. So it's high time that Nigerian youth must begin to take baton of leadership. I believe that the mandate to transforming our country lies in our generation. That is the truth. You know, when we talk about many of people talk about the four major presidential candidates. check most of them. They were governors at their 40s. That is the peak of their career. The PDP presidential candidate retired as deputy director from custom at 43. He got to the peak of his career at that age. So there is progressiveness in youthfulness. I am the youngest presidential candidate, and I believe that it is our generation to take Nigeria back. We cannot continue to move in a circle and believing that we'll have a different result. So looking at the participation of youth in this particular election, we have less than 13% youth. Even when the president has ascended the not too young to run bill, it's a very big stride and is one that we should begin to do. Countries like Grenada, countries like France, countries like UK, countries are beginning to realize, and they have given the mandate of their countries to the hands of our generation. Nigerians also ought to do the same. We'll be moving to a new year a few weeks from now. I think we should be doing new things to achieve new results. So why Accord Party? Accord Party represents that unity. Accord by itself means peace. And one of the very and most important thing we need today in Nigeria is bringing Nigerians back as one. We are so divided. We are the most divided. We are becoming very divided, and we must bring ourselves one. That is what Accord represents, and that is why I also have chosen that party. Those ahead of us have done their best, but I believe we need aggressive development. We need to quickly take out the 133 million Nigerians that are living below poverty out of poverty by creating quick jobs, by investing in technology, by ensuring that we invest in satellite and space, by encouraging our security, by reviewing our security architecture, by drafting policies that are business friendly, by ensuring that the private sector drive the economy. A lot of things can be done, but I believe that can be done by persons of our generation. These and many more are reasons why we believe that our generation should aggressively come into politics, not just at the level of presidency alone, Senate, House of Rep, every other position, and we'll begin to move our country while we are preparing for 2050. 2050 is going to become a year where Nigeria will become the third largest country in the world. Possibly might become a population of 1 billion. What is our preparation? Today, we have 54,000 abandoned projects. Nothing is happening. We are a country where we have less than 1 million ton production for steel. No country can become a productive economy or a manufacturing nation if you don't. China today is the world's largest production of steel. I've done over 1 billion yearly. We must begin to run our economy. We have over 20 million children out of school. We must begin to draft our educational policy and invest rightly. Increase our budget for education. I've done so much in that regard. Check what I've been doing for the past 15 years. Been granting Nigerian scholarship. I've done a lot. Out of all the presidential candidates, I think I've done more privately. So that passion, that vigor, that experience, that service, and Nigeria should also give the youth opportunity. So we can use our youthful age to develop the Nigerian economy. When I'll be leaving, I'll be 48, for example. At 48, if God grant me the grace to become the president, I should be living a better economy. I should be living in Nigeria with its more secured security apparatus. I should be living in Nigeria where the 4,000 illegal routes that we have into Nigerian territory would have been properly harnessed. I should be living in Nigeria that has very low inflation. I should be living in Nigeria that would have invested in all the refinery, that would have invested in alternative energy, that would have been able to generate over 100,000 megawatts of power, because that is what we need. We still struggle to produce less than 6,000 megawatts of power for the 45 million household that we have in Nigeria. By the time we are leaving, we'll be living a country with law and order, a country that have judiciary independence, and a nation that would have fully digitalized the economy.
Professor Chris, let's do some rapid fire question and answer now. What 3 sectors will you make your immediate priority, and how do you intend to fix it? Because we've spoken about the problem. So tell us your top 3 sectors which you plan to focus on if you become the president, and how you plan to fix it.
Number 1 is education. I'm a professor at 39. As you know, I've built 3 universities globally. I've invested all my life in education, provided hundreds of thousands of Nigerian scholarship. I understand the value for education. I will invest majorly in education. You know, the youth of Nigeria have this mandate as this focus of what we now call the jackpot phenomenon. In few years from now, Nigeria will not only be thinking of living at the shores of Nigeria, but we'll be exporting human capital and human resources, just like what is happening in West India. Have people that have technical know-how in technology and managerial skills. Nigerian youth will become that source of revitalizing world economy. That is why we must invest in education. Secondly, I'm going to invest. Economy is key. We will be short. One of my first executive order is to ensure that every activities we do in all the MDAs, the ministry, department, and agencies, and 3 tiers of government from the federal, state, and local government is digitalized. We must begin to run a digital economy. I'm going to focus greatly on economy because we have massive problem, unemployment rate. Have over 60% of our youth unemployed, underemployed. Our youth today live far below $0.50. You know, it's bad. So I will focus usually on economy, education. Then lastly, security. The security challenge we have in Nigeria, it's a progeny of so many things. One is by itself is economic hardship because they all tie together. Security, no job. We have 60% of our Nigerian people, women, people with disabilities, the youth out of job. A state like Katsina that has about 4 million population have less than 20 to 10,000 SMEs. How would the youth survive? A state like Zamfara, schools have been shut down for 3 years. You see, so there's a lot of problems. So we are looking at so many things to do because the problem with Nigeria is so much. But your question, I'll be focusing on education, economy. You know, the economy is massive. We need to ensure that we begin to improve our power. We begin to dissolve the way we generate, transmit, and distribute electricity in Nigeria. Allow private investors who know how to run business come in. Economy is key. Then security. Security, so that we need more than 2 hours to talk about security alone.
Okay, Professor Chris, quickly, what are your thoughts on state policing? State police.
Yes, state policing is the way to go. We need to ensure that we begin to allow states to have access, not just states, even local government, because security is local. I know I'm also a professional in security. If you check my background, I have worked as a lecturer. I've worked practically in security management and asset protection. Security is very key. So we must ensure, I will be doing that. But before that must be done, you know, I'm not just going to become one that is vying for a position because I have a lot of future ahead of me. I'm young. Whatever we do now, posterity will judge because I still have a lot ahead. We are not just going to say, once we come in, we dissolve it and we have state policing. What we must do first is to build a nation that believes in the country. We need to bring everybody together. We need to run a true federal state. We need to engage the Southeast. We need to engage this Northwest. We need to engage the Southwest. We have so many regions that are clamoring for division. We need to bring Nigeria back. The first 6 months of our administration is to bring Nigeria back.
Okay, Professor Chris, because of time, let me ask you the last question. What are your thoughts on removal of fuel subsidy and privatization of the oil sector in Nigeria? So the refineries, do you think they should be repaired or?
Yes, quickly. I've served as the president onshore of oil and gas professionals. And at the time, I was the technical advisor, oil and gas and implementation to Akwa Ibom state government. I work also with the Amnesty during the Niger Delta challenge. And I can tell you clearly that there is the first subsidy issue we have in Nigeria is purely huge corruption, scam, and a lot of few people are taking advantage of that. If Nigeria as a country begin to produce our crude oil, we would have less to import. So what we must do is to begin to quickly look at licensing small scale refinery, not modular refinery now. They are small scale refineries. Small scale refinery are more like a little bit higher than what the militant guys are using in the creek to refine diesel. We must begin to call these guys together and begin to have small scale refinery license. We don't have that. We know we have modular refinery license that's still, to build a modular refinery in Nigeria is still going to invest more than $200 million. That is still huge. So we must ensure that we refine our crude. And the only way to do that is not just to depend on Dangote refinery. We have 3 refineries in Nigeria. We have the Element Petrochemical, we have the Warri refinery, we have the Kaduna refinery. I can tell you none of them is working up to 20% optimal operation. We must aggressively ensure that our refinery are working. We must encourage local production of crude. We are blessed with the crude. We must ensure that our crude is refined to its finished products. Once we're able to do that, we should be able to service Nigeria with oil. We should be able to service Nigeria with AGO, DPK, PMS. That by itself will reduce the importation of oil. And once you don't have oil imported, there is no need for subsidy. The only sector we are going to be subsidizing is food. We are going to be subsidizing education. We are going to be giving bursary to students. We are not going to promise student loan because you cannot achieve a student loan when you don't have a data economy. We are going to drive a data economy. You cannot run a credit economy without having data. In Nigeria today, we don't have data. Anybody can pick the Nigerian passport. We are so porous. So we must database Nigeria properly so every Nigerian can be identified right from when they were born to when they die. It's very key. You cannot run a country without having a data. It's like having children, you don't know who your children are. Anybody can become your children. So we are going to subsidize food, medicals. We are going to subsidize education. And there are some other areas we are going to be subsidized. But for oil and gas, we must encourage local production, increase investment in production. Again, we must also look at alternative energy. Alternative and sustainable energy is the way out. The world is talking about reduction of greenhouse effect, ozone layer depletion, and the rest, climate issue. Nigeria is one of the signatory to the UNFCCC signatory and the new order. So we must begin to look at other ways of producing and servicing energy.
Professor Chris,
we can achieve that in 2 years, I believe.
Professor Chris Imumolen is the presidential candidate of Accord Party. We will be following up your campaign closely, and we'll bring you back sometime in January to continue this conversation. All the best in your presidential campaign and elections. Thanks for joining us on the Weekend Show, Professor Chris.
Thank you so much for having me on your show.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. Talking about the 2023 elections, we also have joining us from the Labour Party, the National Deputy Campaign Manager of the Labour Party, Engineer Isaac Balami. Now, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party and his party have released their manifesto a couple of weeks ago, and so now Nigerians have had the chance to look into the details, the numbers, and the policies which they plan to implement. Engineer Isaac Balami, good morning and welcome to the political segment of the Weekend Show.
Good morning. Thank you, sir. Great to be here again.
It's a pleasure having you. So I'll go straight to it. Peter Obi's manifesto has now been released publicly for Nigerians to go through it and decide who they want to vote for. How is that going so far? What are the main campaign points for the Labour Party in this election?
Okay, sorry, I was actually struggling to hear you.
So what are the main campaign points of the Labour Party in this election as we approach the elections soon?
The main point is very, very clear. By the grace of God, our incoming president, His Excellency Peter Obi and Dati, have released their manifesto. And you can see how they were very, very explicit in the manifesto, and the manifesto talked about the issue of security, which is key. Also, the issue of moving the country from consumption to production, which has been a major challenge. We are just a consuming nation, over 200 million people consuming. Even what we have raw materials for, we have been forced to actually import them, such as Jet A1 for aviation, PMS, DPK, everything. Then also the issue of of course, moving the country, into the fourth industrial revolution. The issue of youth, education, and so on and so forth. So the manifesto is very, very clear on what His Excellency and our VP, want to do. What is more important for me is, when you talk about the issue of manifesto, you can see how long it took Labour Party to come up with her own manifesto. You can pay any consultant, like we've seen other parties, pay any consultant to write a speech for you or write you a manifesto. But Labour Party took their time. And for us, it's not actually about manifesto or paperwork. You see, our principal has been very, very clear in talking about the issue of job creation, security, and also talking about the issue of moving the country from consumption to production. When you put all the candidates side by side, even the blind can see in this case. You've been asking, my brothers here about what they think about what they're doing. For us, okay. Uloka, please. Sorry, interruption from Uloka.
Okay, we'll take a quick break and come back to the studio while the audio is being sorted out. So, Engineer Balami, please stay on the line while the audio is being sorted out. I have with me in the studio Barrister Kola Lapine, who is a political analyst and a lawyer. Welcome back to the Weekend Show, and it's always a pleasure to have you here. We've heard from candidates from Accord parties, representatives of the People's Democratic Party, and now someone from the Labour Party who we'll bring back on the show. So far, what's your take on the preparedness for the 2023 elections when you see what the candidates are doing at the moment?
First, I think a lot of parties are out there and they shouldn't be running for presidency. It might probably have been better if we had a lot of mergers before INEC started printing all the ballots and all. And frankly, I think a lot of presidential candidates know that they're not going to win, and they just want it to be on their CV that they contested for president. Probably a couple of them might have been better in the House, the National Assembly, where we get to know them more, what they stand for, and debates and everything. Frankly, I think the elections will be between the big three: APC, PDP, and Labour Party. And even I don't really think Atiku is going to get anywhere. So, this is my opinion. I just think it's between Labour Party and APC.
Okay, but so the public, when you say between, so the three who you've mentioned now, we saw the former vice president at a town hall meeting last week where he expressed his thoughts and his plans for Nigeria. But the other two candidates who you say stand a chance, we've seen several gaffes on national TV at rallies and in statements and his campaign, where some people have doubted if he will be able to have the full mental capacity to manage the running of the country, because it's not an easy deal. So looking at the candidates, do you think, between the two of them now, so I will come to the Labour Party, do you think Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is competent enough at this point? Now, we've had several cases and claims about his age, about his name, about his education, about a case in the US or an indictment or the lack of it. And then we've also seen his presentations at campaign rally, bearing in mind that we had a president who was out of the country for about 100 days because he wasn't physically well at that point in time. Putting that side by side, what will you say about the APC candidates? Because I asked about the preparedness for this.
I went to Government College Ibadan, and Government College Ibadan has a peculiar way of registering you. So if you go to government college and they ask which set are you, it doesn't mean your year of exit. It's your year of entry.
Yeah.
So you would say, 1984. I left school in 1989. I wouldn't say I left in 1989. I would say 1984 set. We also have a unique school identity called a school number. Everybody has that. And you also have a house. But the person, the individual you mentioned, doesn't have any of these things. I can tell you he didn't come to Government College Ibadan. And he had already posted an affidavit previously saying he had done that. Even if he wins, that election is going to be marred with petitions and courts. There will be the big boys will fight it out in court.
But the new Electoral Act is clear on it, and I recall there was a case which was in court to trial the candidate of the APC, but the court trialed the case for lack of it wasn't enough for him not to run for the election. So do you think post-election...
If he does win, yeah, because they're going to go for his jugular.
Regardless of presidential immunity?
No, he's not. He wouldn't be president yet if he wins the elections.
Okay, so between the time of winning and the announcement.
That's why we have election petition, and they're going to drill the candidates. They're going to, all these things that he doesn't want to talk about. Age, for instance, state of origin, what else is
the indictment?
Everything is all shrouded in secrecy, and that's why this time around when he was going to contest, because there's so many questions, he just put his university certificate there. He doesn't want to talk about primary school, secondary school. How do you go to primary school and secondary school and you don't have pictures of your classmates? I went to All Saints in Ibadan, and we all have yearly group pictures. And I went to Government College, and we have a forum. And I went to, a couple of other universities, and we know ourselves. Okay, so it's questionable. What's he hiding? And then the issue of his health. I mean, that's totally in the hands of God. The president was very ill. He was in the UK for about 100 days. He came back and he's still fit. So the relevant question is this the best that we can put forward in Nigeria? Look at the Macrons of the world. Look at I know when I talk about Macron and Rishi Sunak and everything, everybody's going to talk about Biden. And why do we have to run a gerontocracy in Nigeria? General Gowon was 29 when he was head of state. How old was Murtala Muhammad? How old was General Obasanjo when he first got there? They were all late 30s, early 40s. And I would say the greatest strides which Nigeria made, development, infrastructure and everything, was done under the military. I'm ashamed to say that. I'm not a sympathizer. I don't sympathize with military rule.
Dictatorships.
Yeah, but, it is what it is.
Okay, we'll come back to that and discuss the Labour candidate. But let's go back to Engineer Isaac Balami and hear his final thoughts on his candidate. So, Engineer Balami, can you hear me? I'm hoping the audio has been sorted.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, good. So I'll let you continue, but I just want to chip this in, and this is a question which I have asked earlier. The Southeast, for instance, where Peter Obi is from, we have sit-at-home orders weekly. We have the ESN doing whatever they're doing. We have secession claims, and people believe that this may affect votes in the Southeast. And so if we can't be sure of people coming out to vote en masse in the Southeast, how do we guarantee that your candidates will even get more votes across the other regions in the country?
Well, I think this is a deliberate propaganda to see how they can, the powers that be, to prepare the mind of people as to some of the evil plans that some people have against this country. I don't think the Igbo people are foolish. That is the truth. I think they are one of the most industrious, educated people in this country, even in the civil service. I mean, public sector, private sector, you see what they're doing. This is the closest an Igbo man has come close to power. We've seen clearly what His Excellency Peter Obi has been able to do through the obedient movement across the country. This has never happened in the history of the country. And I don't think the Igbo people will allow this opportunity pass them by. I don't think the Southern people will allow this opportunity pass them by. Because the politicians will always cause problem, always want to bring all about violence. I can assure you that what is happening today, whether in the northeastern part of the country, Boko Haram, banditry, or the issue of sit at home in the southeast, is all influenced by politicians. And this is just for their selfish interest. But you see, one thing that the obedient movement has done, it has gone beyond tribe, religion, ethnicity. It's about the survival of this great nation. It's about, what this country needs. Everybody is tired. So I can assure you that come 2023, by the grace of God, February, the Igbos will come out and vote. We don't have any doubt. And by the grace of God, we are hopeful that the security agencies will also rise up to their responsibilities and do the needful so that there can be peace, not just in the southeast, but also in the northeast and other parts of the country.
Engineer Isaac Balami, thank you so much for your contribution. We do wish you and your party all the best in the 2023 elections. I will be following up to see how the campaigns are going as we proceed. Happy holidays to you. While we come back to Kola in the studio.
Yeah.
So Kola, Southeast, the Labour Party, you have stated that left to you, you'd say the strongest so far in the top four is APC and Labour Party. What's your take on the Labour Party, considering the fact that elections in Nigeria, whether we like it or not, are still largely influenced by money and spending power? Juxtapose it with the security issues which we're having in the Southeast. Remember the Anambra elections. Less than 1 million votes decided that election. And so it goes beyond just the numbers. At the end of the day, there's the total number and the percentages. Do you think Peter Obi of the Labour Party would be able to get a good percentage across all the states?
Okay, let's x-ray the candidate. He is not a stranger. He's part of the system. Let's not forget that. The gentleman was governor of Anambra for 8 years, and he ran as vice president candidate to Atiku Abubakar. He is part of the system. Let's not miss that point. The difference in the gentleman, and I'm not holding forte for him, is his frugality. He's the only governor that I'm aware of who is not receiving any pension or whatever, still collecting monetary whatever from the state. That's novel, and we are now in a place where people are beginning to demand for accountability. You can see him moving around. I don't see a large motorcade or policemen or wherever like former governors do. That's refreshing. And I think that's what's making him connect with people. There's so much waste in government. There's so much, it just seems as if everybody just goes in there to dip their hands into the till and feather their nests. Okay. Having said that, perhaps if we have someone from the Southeast as Commander-in-Chief, we will be able to deal with the insurgency that is happening in the East. Because whether we like it or not, it is insurgency. No one is actually in charge of the territorial space of Southeast. Otherwise, why would someone sit down in Norway? Nnamdi Kanu is in detention here in Abuja, and someone in Norway gives directives and is being carried out on our territory, and we've not been able to arrest the situation. I saw the pictures last week. It was gory. People were, shot and, just murdered in broad daylight. And we're not doing anything about it. Someone just sits in his study in Norway and says nobody must go to work. Everything must shut down. And it's happening. And we have a commander-in-chief in Nigeria. No, that's appalling. Okay, we need to do something about it. Are we even in charge of our own country anymore? Those are the issues. Maybe if we now have someone from the Southeast who knows that terrain very well, and unfortunately, the incumbents, because they didn't vote for him, said he wasn't going to do anything much to them. Oh, if you voted 95% against me, and therefore, I'm not really going to focus on you. I'll focus on people who voted for me. That was one of the most divisive statements we've had from our president. And exclusion. Once you've won, or you've won once you're the winner and you've won, you embrace everything and you become the president of the country instead of, the divisive statements, and they feel the Southeasterners don't feel among and everything. So I think that Peter Obi is going to win overwhelmingly in the Southeast, no doubt about that. This is where the trick is. The Constitution says he must win 2/3 of the Federation, including Abuja. And I think the formula is 2/3, 1/4. I think 1/4 here, 1/4 of the votes or whatever.
Yeah.
So that is where the challenge is. Maybe Dati being from the north will be able to swing things in his favor. The interesting thing about Labour Party, because now we now have a credible third party in Nigeria, is that it is organic. Okay, they came up with a slogan, we know they give shishi and all that. It's organic, people printing banners and, turning up and waving flags. I don't think we've seen that since maybe June 12, and SDP really, the SDP train ruled all over Nigeria. So
as we wrap this up, final question. Nigeria has a rising debt profile. There's a global inflation going on right now. The UK, they have financial issues. The US, and so it's a global problem. Peter Obi had started by saying we're borrowing too much, our debt profile is too high. And now he has moved that we should stop borrowing for consumption to borrowing for production. Do you think Peter Obi presidency would be able to fix our debt issues? Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, during the President Obasanjo term, was able to have some negotiations, which is why we got the Paris refund. How do you think he will be able to deal with this? Because this is not a problem that can be fixed within 4 or 8 years.
Well, at least we can start from somewhere. We must thank Mrs. Okonjo-Iweala, who encouraged us to save when she was Minister of Finance. And she kept on saying, you need to put money aside. And we were able to save something. Unfortunately, somebody at the federal government was also dipping hands into the money that was saved. So whenever they come for the Council of State meetings and they were giving accounts, some governors say, but we left X amount of billion last month. How come it is dropped by 1 billion?
Final word, will Peter Obi be able to fix this?
I think we need someone who's frugal, and I tilt towards that sentiment.
So
I haven't made up my mind who I'm going to vote for, but at least we don't want someone who's going to spend everything. Let's start saving, and I think that Peter Obi embodies that saving.
That's a good
culture.
place to leave it. We will watch and we will wait and we will vote. It's extremely important to note that, and for people who registered for their voters card, some of people have started collections. Please follow up, check the INEC website to know when and if your card is ready to be collected, and ensure you use it to vote. From the Weekend Show, that's the much we can take on today's episode of the Weekend Show. I want to wish you happy holidays. Stay safe, drive safely, wear your seatbelt, and don't eat too much. We'll be wrapping up this show with a special performance by someone who I absolutely love her music, Salvation. Over to you. Do have a blessed weekend.